All right, guys, as promised, we are starting the novel Frindle today. So I want you to close your eyes real quick, and we're going to practice visualizing while we read Frindle. So close your eyes. Okay, I want you to picture this. On a hot summer day, I was sweating buckets when I jumped into the freezing, ice-cold pool. What did you picture? What could you see or taste, smell, feel, touch, hear? What was that mental movie in your head when I said all of that? That's what visualizing is. When you can picture it in your head. I pictured me just like, ugh, it's a hot summer day. I feel disgusting. And then just plunging into that freezing cold pool was just like a wake up, like, whoa, my goodness. So today, when I read Frindle chapter 1, you need to be visualizing what is going on in the book. Try to create a mental movie in your head. Other than that, you get to sit back, you get to relax. As I read, I'm going to stop and I'm going to start writing down the characters that we start to see and whoever starts coming out in Frindle. And I'm just going to start adding them to our little anchor chart called Characters in Frindle, and we'll start adding some character traits to them and who they are and what they do. But for now, as I read chapter 1, I want you to be visualizing what I'm reading. So what's going on? What can you see, feel, taste, smell, touch, hear? What's that mental movie in your head? Do you picture the main character like this? How do you picture them? What does it look like? What are the words that tell you what it looks like? Okay, so let's start Frindle. Chapter 1 by Andrew Clements. Nick. If you ask the kids and the teachers at Lincoln Elementary School to make 3 lists, all the really bad kids, all the really smart kids, and all the really good kids, Nick Allen would not be on any of them. Nick deserved a list all his own, and everyone knew it. Okay, guys, I'm going to stop real quick, and on our character list, I'm going to write Nick Allen. That appears to be our main character. Okay. Was Nick a troublemaker? Hard to say. One thing's for sure, Nick had plenty of ideas, and he knew what to do with them. One time in 3rd grade, Nick decided to turn Miss Deaver's room into a tropical island. What kid in New Hampshire isn't ready for a little summer in February? So first, he got everyone to make small palm trees out of green and brown construction paper and tape them onto the corners of each desk. Miss Deaver had only been a teacher for about 6 months, and she was delighted. Okay, we're going to write Miss Deaver down. She might not show up again, but we will see. That's so cute! The next day, all the girls wore paper flowers in their hair, and all the boys wore sunglasses and beach hats. Miss Deaver clapped her hands and said, "It's so colorful!" The day after that, Nick turned the classroom thermostat up to about 90 degrees with a little screwdriver he had brought from home. All the kids changed into shorts and t-shirts with no shoes, and when Miss Deaver left the room for a minute, Nick spread out 10 cups of fine white sand all over the classroom floor. Miss Deaver was surprised again at just how creative her students could be. But the sand got tracked out into the hallway where Manny, the custodian, did not think it was creative at all, and he stomped right down to the office. All right, so we've got Manny. The principal followed the trail of sand, and when she arrived, Miss Deaver was teaching the hula to some kids near the front of the room, and a tall, thin, shirtless boy with chestnut hair was just spiking a Nerf volleyball over a net made from 6 t-shirts tied together. The 3rd grade trip to the South Seas ended suddenly, but that didn't stop Nick from trying to liven things up. Lincoln Elementary needed a good jolt once in a while, and Nick was just the guy to deliver it. Okay, so let's write some stuff about our people. So we have Nick. He's our main character. Miss Deaver is the third grade teacher. I think that's what third grade teacher. And Manny is the custodian. Guys, this Nick Allen guy sounds like he's going to be funny. But that didn't stop Nick. About a year later, Nick made the great blackbird discovery. One night he learned on a TV show that red-winged blackbirds give this high-pitched chirp when a hawk or some other danger comes near. Because of the way sound travels, the hunter birds can't tell where the high-pitched chirp is coming from. The next day, during silent reading, Nick glanced at his teacher, and he noticed that Mrs. Avery's nose was curved, kind of like the beak of a hawk. So Nick let out a high, squeaky blackbird. Okay, so we have Mrs. Avery. Okay. Mrs. Avery jerked her head up from her book and looked around. She couldn't tell who did it, so she just said, shh, to the whole class. A minute later, Nick did it again, louder. Peep! This time, there was a little giggling from the class, but Mrs. Avery pretended not to hear the sound. About 15 seconds later, she slowly stood up and walked to the back of the classroom. Without taking his eyes off his book and without moving at all, Nick put his heart and soul into the highest, y'all ready? Most annoying chirp of all. Mrs. Avery pounced. Janet Fisk, you stop that this instant. Janet, who was sitting 4 rows away from Nick, promptly turned white, then bright crimson. Okay, guys, I'm going to write Janet Fisk down. She's just a classmate. Oh, gosh. Okay. But it wasn't me. Honest. There was a catch in Janet's voice, as if she might cry. Mrs. Avery knew she had made a mistake, and she apologized to Janet. But someone is asking for trouble, said Mrs. Avery, looking more like a hawk every second. Nick kept reading, and he didn't make a peep. At lunchtime, Nick talked to Janet. He felt bad that Mrs. Avery had pounced on her. Janet lived in Nick's neighborhood, and sometimes they played together. She was good at baseball, and she was better at soccer than most of the kids in the whole school, boys or girls. Nick said, Hey, Janet, I'm sorry you got yelled at during reading. It was my fault. I was the one who made that sound. You did? But how come, said Janet, but how come Mrs. Avery thought it was me? So Nick told her about the blackbirds, and Janet thought it was pretty interesting. Then she tried to make a peep or two, and Janet's chirps were even higher and squeakier than Nick's. She promised to keep everything a secret. For the rest of Nick's 4th grade year, at least once a week, Mrs. Avery heard a loud peep from somewhere in her classroom. Sometimes it was a high-pitched chirp, and sometimes it was a very high-pitched chirp. Mrs. Avery never figured out who was making that sound, and gradually she trained herself to ignore it. But she still looked like a hawk. To Nick, the whole thing was just one long and successful science experiment, and Janet Fisk enjoyed it too. And that was the end of chapter 1. So real quick, let's add some details. Mrs. Avery was the 4th grade teacher. Looked like a hawk, according to Nick. And Janet was the good at soccer, lived in Nick's neighborhood. Okay. So that's just a little bit about the characters. We're going to keep this list up as we figure out more characters. We're going to add things to Nick Allen. I might make a bigger page of this because I'm running out of room already. But that was chapter 1. So all we learned really in chapter 1 was all about how this Nick Allen guy was kind of a troublemaker, right? And he was kind of trying to be the class clown. He thought it was funny. Don't you think that's what he was thinking? So, your job today is you should have been trying to make a mental movie in your head during that whole entire chapter, and you should do it every time you read. But your job today is you're going to create a visualization picture over what you just read. So, here are my expectations. You draw a picture, and it needs to include everything you remember about chapter 1. So remember the things that happened with Miss Deaver from 3rd grade, the sand and the volleyball. He turned it up with the screwdriver, made it like 90 degrees in the class. You also need to make sure that you include things about Mrs. Avery, the 4th grade teacher, and what happened with her and the little hawk. They thought she looked like a hawk. Also, at the very bottom, you need to explain to me what you visualized. So you'll draw your picture and you'll explain your picture. So you'll have a picture at the top, an explanation at the bottom. It can be one sentence telling me I'm picturing or I'm imagining. It can be multiple sentences if you have a lot going on. But you need to have a visualization and you need to have an explanation of what your picture is. And then you'll just do this on a piece of paper and you'll turn a picture of it in. Now, guys, there are some very specific things in this chapter. There were probably some colors going on. Think of the beach. So just do your very best. Tell me what you picture, and I cannot wait to see them. All right. So we just finished chapter 1. On Monday, we will probably do chapter 2 or more. Bye. I cannot wait to figure out more mischievous thing Nick Allen does.